Hey guys, welcome to Lenin 8. In this video, we are going to discuss about a Java program to print Fibonacci series up to n. So what's the meaning of this one? If n is 5, we have to print 5 Fibonacci series numbers. That is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3. If n is 10, then we have to print 10 Fibonacci numbers. Yeah. Let us understand how do we do this program. So here, for explanation convenience, let me take n is 10. Yeah. So if n is 10 means what is our expected output? The expected output is nothing but 0, 1. Then from here, how do we get the next number? First two numbers are mandatory 0 and 1. Then the next number is sum of the previous two numbers. That is 0 and 1. If we add, we'll give the result of 1. And 1 and 1 will give the result of 2. Then 1 plus 2 gives 3. 2 plus 3 gives 5. And 3 plus 5, 8, then 13, then 21, then finally 34. So this is what the expected output, right? Then here, as the series of this Fibonacci is in such a way that the previous two numbers sum is the result of the next number. Or the next number is nothing but sum of two previous numbers, right? So here, first let me take the last number, which is 34. And how do we get this number? It is 13 plus 21 or 21 plus 13. You can write any which way. So I'm using 21 plus 13. How do we get 21? 21 is nothing but 8 plus 13 or 13 plus 8. Sum of the previous two numbers. Order can be anything. Right? So in the same way here, if we go for this 1, how do we get this 1? This 1 is nothing but 1 plus 0. So here till this 1, so we can get the sum of the two previous numbers. But how do we get the 1 here, which is the second number in the series? This one I'm talking about. And this 0. How do we get them? We don't get them through the same iteration process, right? So that's why we need two inputs of programmer choice. That is int some number 1 equals to 0. The first two values we don't get from the Fibonacci series iteration process. That's why we have to take one variable and assign a value 0. And next to take another variable and assign the value to 1. Yeah. Now, if you observe this step 1, can we say that this 1 represents num2 and a plus this 0 represents num1? Yes, right? And this result has to be stored back into some other variable. To store this 1, we need some other variable. We should not use this num and 1, num2 and num1. So that's why let me take one int and the variable name as temp. So next step, if we write it, 1 plus 0 is giving 1. Then how do you get 2? 2 is nothing but 1 plus 1. And we get the result as 2. Correct? So now here is one important step. And if you understand this one, entire Fibonacci series is over. So here in this previous number, one of the previous number is becoming first number in the next step. And the result of the previous number, previous step is becoming second number in this step. Correct? And again, we are storing the result back to some other variable. So now this num1, in place of this num1, in this step I'm talking about, in place of this num1, which number is coming or which number is replaced with? Num2 value is assigned to num1, correct? And which number is becoming num2? Previous step result is becoming. That result is in which variable? Temp. So it means this is in temp variable. Correct? Num2 is becoming temp. So don't get confused here. I am writing num1, num2 and here num2 temp just to make you understand what is happening. And this result again has to be stored back to temp only. Correct? I hope this step is clear. Okay, let me go for one more iteration. How to get 3? To get 3, we have to add 2 and 1. So 2 plus 1 gives 3. So 2 is this 1 is what? It's a previous step, second number is becoming next step, first number. And what is this 2? It is a previous step, temp is becoming next step, num2. Correct? And again, we will be storing the result back to temp. Now here, this num2 is becoming num1. Am I correct? And this temp is becoming num2. Then the result has to be stored back to temp only. And at the last, again, num2 is going to become num1. And temp is going to become num2. And the result has to be stored back to temp. So this is the iteration process to get the Fibonacci series. I hope you understood. If you understand this logic, then it is very easy to write a Java program. I hope it is clear. So let us write the Java program. So this step, please no confusion. This is to make you understand I'm writing, but this is what the same step which is repeating in every iteration. Okay. So here, so first what do we need? We need two results, two numbers. So let me go for int num1 equal to 0. I'm writing a Java program for this. Int num2 equal to 0. Sorry, 1. The next step. So here, for our discussion, I'm taking n equals to 10. But normally, if we give 5 also, the logic has to work. And if we give some 20 also, the logic has to work. And everywhere, the series has to start from 0 and 1. And the remaining numbers will be according to our input. Correct? So for that, here I am taking one count. How many times this step has to repeat? First time, second time, third time, fourth time, 10th time, right? So for that, I am taking one count. Int count. Initially, it is 0. Next, after having this count, as a programmer, we are giving the input of this 10, 5, 20. So is it that we are aware of what the end user is going to give? No, right? So it means starting we are aware of, but ending we are not aware of. So in such situations, while loop is the best suited. So here I'm using while. What is the count? The count has to become less than the programmer's input called n. So for this, let me also take one n or num, whatever it is. So I'm taking some number. Is a programmer choice. It can be 5, 10, 20, anything of that sort, right? And here, what is the first output here? 0. Is it coming from the iteration process? It's not coming, right? And next, this one also, it's not coming. So here, for that reason, here count should not be equals to n. Count should be less than equals to whatever is the programmer's number. So here, let me take count is less than num. So in this while loop, what's the first step? So first step is, it is the same step, only one step here. So what is that is? Num2 plus num1 is the common step in every iteration. Yeah. And the result has to be assigned back to a variable temp. Is this temp is defined before? No, it's not defined. So let me take the type of temp as integer. Then here is one more important step. What is it is? Which value we have to assign back to num1? Swapping technique we are applying here. And this num1 value is nothing but num2's value has to be assigned to num1. Num2's value is to be assigned to num1. That's why num2 value we are assigning to num1. Yeah. Next step, which value to be assigned to num2? So here previous temp is becoming num2. Previous temp is becoming num2. So here, right? So that's why temp value we have to assign to num2. Yeah. So since we are using a count, this step has to be executed once, twice, thrice like that. To get the number of expected results, for this we have to increment even count as well. So count plus plus. Yeah. So this is the end of the while loop. Then if we execute, do we get any output? No, because there is no print statement. So here is one more important point. What we have to print and where we have to print. So here in the first step, what is the value in variable num1? I mean, first value of num1 is 0, right? And in the second step, what is num1 is going to become 1. And next it is going to become again 1 and then 2 and so on. So our expected result is in the variable called num1. So that's why. So here I am using before it modifies. Before the value modifies, we are printing by using a print statement and the variable name is num1. Yeah. So it is depends on the programmer's input. Say for example 10, we get the corresponding output as expected. Yeah, I hope it is understood. To execute this Fibonacci series program, I have taken a class with the name Fibonacci series and a scanner class to read the input from the keyboard, and I'm storing into a variable called n. Yeah, and I'm executing by a method based approach. So for the same thing, I have taken a class name called Hemachandra. So here Hemachandra is one Indian scientist who also introduced this Fibonacci series way before Fibonacci. Yeah, so that's why I'm taking this class name as Hemachandra, and the method name is get Hemachandra series, and we are taking the input from the user as num. So after this, what is our discussed code? So we are having a programmer input. Then we need one variable called num1 value to be 0, and we need another variable num2 whose value to be assigned to 1. Next, we also need one count and the value to be 0. And for this, we don't know what is this number, but we know from where the iteration starts. That's why while loop is recommended. When we know the starting, but when we don't know the ending, while loop is recommended. So count, and here it should be less than or equals to or only less than. Only less than num. And what's the purpose of this loop? So write the logic of sum of two numbers to store into temp variable, and that is num2 and then plus num1. And here first num2 value to be assigned to num1, and then which value to be assigned to num2? Temp value to be assigned to num2. So after this, for the loop to be continued for required number of times, we need this count also to be incremented. And finally, where we have to print and what we have to print. So here in this loop, I'm using a print statement and a print num1, not num2, num2. Yeah, so we have a method and a input, and we have the method logic. Now to execute this, we have to create the object in the main method. So class name, and then I'm using object variable equals to new class name. And how to call a method? By using object variable dot method signature get Hemachandra series, and it's a void type, and in this method body only we had a print statement, so no need to catch it, only pass the input as a variable name n. So let us execute this program, and here we have to give the input. So I'm giving say 10. What is our expected output? So it is from 0 to 34, and let me re-execute, and this time I'll give the input as 5, and we got first 5 series numbers in the Fibonacci. Yeah, Fibonacci series will always starts with 0 and 1. I hope you understood. And what if we give a negative? You can add one if condition, and if it is negative, don't print anything or print invalid output input, and if it is positive only, this is the logic. I hope you understood. And for more videos, use the comment section to post your questions. Thank you, and see you in the next video.